Hello everyone, I'm Joe Ackourey, and welcome to the Fly of the Week. For this episode, episode 54, I'll be tying a Baetis Emerger, also commonly known as the blue-wing olive emerger. If you remember, in my previous episode, we tied the Baetis nymph, and I thought it'd be a good idea to follow up with the Baetis Emerger so that you guys can see the life cycle of this very important hatch. This is the kickoff for the first mayfly hatch of the season, typically starting in mid-March and lasting until mid-April. So you want to add this very important emerger to your arsenal for sure. And maybe in the episode 55, I'll be tying a Baetis adult. So without further ado, let's get started. The Baetis Emerger. So place the hook in the vise and cover the entire hook, well, at least until you hit the critical bend, which would be straight where it gets flat there. Yeah, I'm using an olive 8/0 thread for this fly. Clip off the excess. I'm also using a size 16 C49S Mustad emerger hook. Okay, that looks great. Now, for the first step is going to be placing the trailing shuck on. I'm going to use a little bit of Antron fibers here, just a couple. Don't go crazy with it. Just enough to create a little excitement. Just draw them down. That's perfect. Very, very fine amount. And the trailing shuck is nothing more than the exoskeleton sliding off the nymph. I'm sorry, the dry fly is shedding its exoskeleton, or the shuck, and this is the remnants of it sliding off. Okay, now we're going to put a little fine piece of copper wire in. This will be to help secure the body that I'm going to place on top of this, the abdomen. And we want to make these bodies, the abdomens, as skinny as possible. So this is a very delicate looking emerger. And the trout seem to respond much better with a finely dressed fly as opposed to a big bulky one, especially for this hatch. So this is this abdomen I'm building is just like the Baetis nymph that I tied in the previous episode. We're going to attach our already prepared Peacock eye fiber, which, like I said in previous lesson, only comes from the Peacock eye. You strip off the downy, the fuzz. You will not get the two-tone color that I showed you a minute ago from selecting these hackles or these fibers down below here. It's got to come from the eye, guys. Remember that. It has to come from the eye. And that's where you're going to get that nice stripe there, that dark and light stripe. So we're going to tie in the thick end of that prepared quill or fiber. And then we're going to dub a very fine, I'm talking very fine, abdomen. Just enough to give it a little bit of bulk. Here we go. I formed the noodle, very thin. And I'm going to carefully just wrap up the shank. Keep going. This one's going to be around 75% again. Pretty much like we did for the abdomen for the Baetis nymph. pulled a little hard there. Okay, now take your peacock quill, strip peacock quill, and carefully wrap up. Again, this is a very delicate quill, so, and give it a tiny space in between each wrap. It gives it a really nice effect. And tie that off. Very good. Now, grab your copper wire, and we're gonna chase that quill that we just wrapped up with this copper wire. And the main reason for me doing this is because I just want to make a stronger bodied abdomen here for this emerger, because a couple trout takes and it's pretty much mangled. So with this copper wire, that'll help it stay together a little longer. Okay, so in review, we have our trailing shuck. Let me pull it out of the vise a little bit, you can get a better idea, better visual on it. Here's your trailing shuck, and we have our abdomen, which was comprised of a piece of copper wire wrapped around we dubbed the body, a slight tapered body, and we wrapped the peacock eye fiber around, creating a very nice effect for the, a realistic looking abdomen. Okay, let's put the hook back in the vise. Just adjust these jaws a little bit. A little more. There we go. Now, so our next step is to put in the legs. And for the legs, I'm using a medium done Hackle, whose fiber length is approximately 1.5 gaps of the hook. I'm standing up those fibers to show you. And like all previous lessons, there's a natural curve to the feather. I always like to tie it so that it's curving down and over the fly. I'm going to attach it to my side of the hook, or slightly on top there. All right, looking good. So now we're going to get a little bit of the fur blend for the thorax. We're going to start putting the thorax together, which will build a very fine thorax. Very fine. Just enough to cover the thread a little bit. I'm going to stop right there, actually. Reason being, I'm going to attach a wing in there made of dark to medium Comparadon deer hair. And just like in my previous emerger patterns, like the Hendrickson emerger that I tied way back a couple of, many episodes ago, I like to use deer hair for the wing. So I'm going to stack that little bunch, and I'm taking again, this is a tiny hook. And I don't need to use a lot of the hair, just enough to create a decent wing without overpowering the fly. Okay, there's our wing. So I'm going to attach that right up against that bunch of fur blend that I used to build the beginning of the thorax. I'm going to squeeze the wing and the thorax together, and I'm going to tighten my thread up a little bit, give it a little spin. And I'm going to wrap about 6 wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 2 more, 8 wraps. And then take those wraps off. Whenever I work with deer hair, I like to put a crease in the deer hair wing, or a kink in the wing, and you can easily see it, so that my very first wrap, when I go to reattach it, is much closer to the shank of the hook, and gives me a much stronger anchoring of the wing. I'm going to cover that up a little bit. Okay. Now, I have a little bit of extra fur blend that was tucked inside my bobbin from when I was building the beginning of the thorax that I'm going to now use that for the remainder of the thorax. Looks good. I'm going to build a little foundation for the head. I'm going to angle my hook up just a little bit, just so that I get a nice, so my hackle doesn't slip off. The angle was pretty critical there. So now I'm going to take this wing, I'm going to stand this wing up. I'm going to take my hackle. I'm going to get at least one full wrap behind the wing. Whoops. And then one full hackle wrap in the front. And I'm going to tie it off. Clip off your excess hackle. Looking good. Cover up any fibers. Tie your knot. Okay. Now, I'm going to get rid of a lot of these hackle fibers on the top and underneath. Again, I like a sparse emerger for this hatch. I don't want it too overly dressed. That looks pretty darn good, guys. And now I'm going to put a little curve in the wing. I'm going to take the scissors, the edge of my scissors, and go in and just draw it up. Look how nice that curves that wing. And what that's going to do, by curving this wing, it's going to hold a little air bubble and give it a really nice effect. I'm telling you guys, this pattern works really well. Little drop of head cement. And this emerger is finished. There you go, the Baetis Emerger. I tied it in a size 16 just to help you guys see it a little bit better. But realistically, I'm always tying it in 18s and 20s. Yep. The Baetis Emerger, guys. You gotta keep this and add this to your arsenal. It'll make the difference, I'm telling you. Just want to thank you for joining me for this episode of the Fly of the Week, and looking forward to seeing you guys in my next episode, which will be the Baetis Adult. So you don't want to miss it. Tight lines, guys.